We're
That's
good.
probably a good idea. Okay, so this is the nurturing program. There are
You need to show your screen.
20.
Oh, there we go.
That should be coming up.
Yep.
So 23 touch points, basically a nurturing program.
There, I think home builders have
And
23 and remodelers are 26 or 27.
correct. And the purpose here is basically, number one, to engage anyone that comes in to the website, responds to the website, becomes a lead in the system, automatically gets into this program. So this program is there to engage, to educate, differentiate, and hopefully close the value gap. So this should do quite a bit of the sales job for you. So each touch point in here is essentially there to to engage. So this would be an example of a touch point, and I'm going to give you control. No, you have control, Rick. You can control that from your own side. So, okay. Anything else you want me to say, or do you want to take over from here?
Nope. I think what we want to do is go back to. Let me get my spot here. Let's look at. I'm going to come back to me, and we're going to go back to the personal email.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to look at the personal email call to actions. The idea is the nurturing program is there to engage, build value. Then once you get a lead, you got to do the personal email call to action. So the personal email is a formula for the email that you all should be following. I know a lot of you have not had any email training, and most of us do not use email properly. AIDAT. And the other thing we want to have in our email is we want to have always a link or a call to action. So we want to ask them to do something. It could be as simple as replying to the email. That's the simplest call to action. Or you would put a link into the email and ask them to click on it. So remember, the call to action is always singular. Never ask them to do more than one thing. And then we're going to go through and track engagement or open and click through. So Runa, I'm going to go back to you again, and let's pull open the add a note in Customer 101.
Okay, so I have selected a Customer 101 here. And essentially you have three different notes in the system. One is automatically generated by Ubix, so you don't have any control with that. Second one is a general note. That's basically one that's not time action specific. And then I assume what you are thinking of, Rick, is a follow-up note.
Yep, add a note there, exactly.
Yeah, so if I do a follow-up note, we have that here. And you have, Rick, if you want to take over from here.
Okay, so what's important to note here is that from an email perspective, let's say I want to go in and I want to send, Aaron here wants to send an email. So what we're going to do is say we're going to plan to send an email to some point for a follow-up. And I can pick my date here. So we'll just go ahead and click on today's date and time. Now, the templates we have on here is we have the email formula template right in here. And you notice if I click on that, now all of a sudden we see, let me make this larger. We see this same formula, this AIDAT here. And AIDAT stands for action, interest, desire, attention, interest, desire, action, and then thank you. And so what I've done is I've put examples down here. Your email should be very short, very to the point. And when we get to the interest part, that's what we'll go look at next from the Customer 101 and the sales funnel to figure out what people are interested in. So AIDAT, surprisingly, it's the same formula for phone as well. So I have the phone formula here. And if you want to, say, just use a copy of this or a sample of this, you can go down here and you can click on this little button. So include this text in an email. And then I can go ahead and I can send the email to the customer. And the text will show up in the simple text form. Let's see, I'm not sure where it opened up, Runa. Can you find that window that the email opened up in? don't know where it opened up, but anyway, it's on here. It's on here someplace. Aaron, AIDAT again stands for attention, interest, desire, action, and then finally thank you. So I'm going to flip back here and I'm going to go through that a little bit more. I'm going to flip back to my screen, Runa, and you're muted too, by the way, Runa.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
All right, so this is the AIDIT email formula. The attention, again, is your subject line. And again, an example in your subject line, you always want to put the prospect, lead to prospect's first name in there. Try to use curiosity. Subject line is the most important part of the email, so getting someone's attention. If you don't get their attention, forget about it. They're not opening it. The interest then is what typically you're going to look at from the sales tracking standpoint or from the invisible market standpoint. Figure out what they've been looking at the website, what emails they've been opening. The desire is the emotional desire they want to take action. So I have examples here for all these. And then the action is the specific call to action you want them to do. So that would be clicking on a link or replying to the email or picking up the phone and calling you, something like that. And then simply the thank you and the signature. So that's from the AIDAT formula or the email perspective. All right, so this information too is located in Game Day Coaching on email stuff, and I'll also have a copy of this video in there as well. So now we move on. So we email someone, we get them now to go ahead and reply to the email, and what our goal now is again to schedule a phone call with them because we've got to figure out if they're a viable lead. And if they're a viable lead, we're going to go ahead and we're going to go through our questioning process and get them into Ubix. So what I have put together is this particular guide right here, and this is something that you would use on the phone. It's just, I have one for home building, one for remodeling. They're 10 minutes long. I have a little script here to get you started, and we move into where we gather the information. So this is option one. Let's say you're not in front of a computer, you're remote, you don't have Ubix open in front of you. You would pull out this sheet, fill out the information here. The sheet is designed to flow just like you would talking on the phone. 10 minutes. When you get done, you're going to make a determination here if you should schedule an appointment, an on-site appointment, if they're viable or not. And if they are viable, of course, we're going to put them into the system if they're not in the system, or if they're a lead in the system right now, this is very important. If they're assigned as a lead, we're going to change their stage to a prospect. And that prospect will become an A or a B. So inside Ubix, there's a tagging system. And Runa, I'm going to go back to you so we can look at that tagging system from prospect entry or customer one-on-one or maintain a customer. You're muted again, Runa.
That's fine. So
maintain a customer.
Maintain a customer. So I basically go to maintain a customer, and
Yep.
we would have the option in here to manage the notes. So
Yep. So here's the tags. So what I would do first of all is this person's a lead. I determine, you know what? I talked to them. They're now ready. So now they become a B customer. The stage has changed to a prospect, but they're not able yet. Let's say they have house seller financing. So I go into my tags menu here, and all the information that I learned from my phone call now goes into this. And all of these should be customized for you. If you go into your tags menu and you look at you're missing something, well, there's an advertising source or some other piece of information you want to know, just go and you can modify this menu, or you can let Adriana know, and she will make the modification for you. Very, very important you get that information in there from a tagging standpoint. And we keep moving. Now, once we've determined that, hey, this person is a viable prospect, they're an A or B, I'm going to schedule an on-site meeting, I obviously just move their stage to a prospect. And from the prospect to buyer stage is really, again, 3 main steps that I'm going to take, and we're going to focus a little bit more time on these. So number one is I need to prepare for my initial consultation. And one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to send them what's called a send-ahead and my needs, wants, and wish list. From there, I'm going to have my initial consultation, and we'll go through that, exactly what you want to accomplish. I'm next going to move into the deposit stage. I want to get cash, and this is important here that we are not giving out too much pricing or simply just a preliminary pricing before we get some sort of a deposit. And that deposit could be a home site reservation or it could be a planned deposit. But home site reservation for sure. Then I go through my preliminary pricing, and we'll look at how this ties back into your needs, wants, and wish list. And then I'm moving into the buyer stage. Of course, that's where some of you consider a buyer if you've got a planned deposit, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. Some of you consider their buyer if they're accepted purchase agreement. I like the accepted purchase agreement myself, but that is up to you. So from these stages, the initial consultation, there's really 3 parts to it. So what I do before I meet with somebody, what I do at the actual meeting, and then what I'm doing after the meeting. So pre-event, event, and the post-event. Okay, so the pre-event, we're going to do what's called a send-ahead. We're going to send that out ahead of time, and that is a piece of a PDF that you're going to email to them that is personalized for you and your company. Along with that, I'm going to send them a needs, wants, and wish list. I'll show you an example of both of those. Then number 3, Runa, we discussed this, but we haven't gone there yet. I think we're moving towards this, is looking at creating an online survey. So in other words, when we have events right now for, say, model grand opening or a custom open house or home show, that sort of thing, when people RSVP to that event, we are actually surveying them before they get there, asking them, hey, since you're coming to the event, tell me what information is important to you so that I can be better prepared. And what we find is roughly 30% of the people that RSVP will fill that out. And of course, you've seen in those emails that have come to you, it says, okay, Joe and Mary Smith filled out the survey and they want information on financing or home sites or floor plans or whatever it is. So let's go and take a quick closer look at the send ahead, the needs, wants, and wish list. Again, the send ahead, I think I have it here. Where did I put my send ahead? Here we go. This is the remodeling send ahead. So the send ahead has really 3 components to it. One, it's an overview of what you're going to do. You're going to tell them what the meeting time and place is. Number 2, it's going to have specific information about you. So you'll have build links on here for your website. You'll have your contact information. So this is where you as a salesperson to make sure your contact information is here. You're also going to have information on, say, testimonials, video, and or written from your clients. All of that will be on this page. The third part of it is the tips and questions asked. This is taking more of the consultative role when you're meeting with somebody. So you've got several tips on here. We are preempting the price is too high objection here by discussing how projects are priced. And then we're giving them roughly 20 questions. When they come and meet with us, we're suggesting they ask us this or any other builder or remodeler they meet with, they should be asking these 20 questions. So all of you should have this done. It should be a link in your link library in Ubix. If you do not have it done, you'll need to do it right away. And it's possibly if you're a new salesperson, it might be that your company has one done, but just not specifically for you. So you'll need to get it modified so you have one of these done as well. Now, so that's first part of it. The second part is your needs, wants, and wish list. The needs, wants, and wish list is very important. You get this on the table before you ever meet with someone the first time. Why is this? Because no matter what, the wants and needs and wishes always exceed a person's budget. And we're going to use this particular tool to help people break down their project into those 3 phases. So phase number 1, a need. It means that I'm not moving or I'm not going to do this project unless I get these items. These are going to be your hot buttons. Very, very important that you focus on these during your initial consultation. So you're going to get them from your prospect before you ever meet in this form. Number 2 are your wants, and it's just this. Features would be nice to have, but not at the top of the list. So people hope to get most of their wants into their project. And then finally we have the wishes. Okay, so these are things that, you know what, I've just been dreaming about this. I'm curious how much it would be. And this sheet is very, very important that we get the project broken down So when we get to the point where people do have to cut back, we can go back and reinforce this and say, well, this was a want, this was a wish. You know, we can pull these out. We can get the project back into where your budget is and make this happen. So send this out right away with your initial, or I should say, send ahead, the initial consultation. So the send ahead, I suggest you put this as a downloadable PDF. So once you make the edits to the Word document, you save it as a PDF, email the PDF to Adriana. She will put it in the link library for you, and then you'll be able to grab that and add it as a link to your email. Now, just to build, one of our clients yesterday was asking about the needs, wants, and wish list. He says, well, maybe I should send this out as a Word document, let people fill it out ahead of time, and then email it back to me. Hey, that's great if you want to do that. So you have access to it in a Word document right now. If you want to save it as a Word document, and we'll upload it into the link library as a Word document, that's fine. If you want to use it as a PDF. I just think it's important you make a note that you want to get this before you meet people. So when you're doing your confirmation email or phone call, remind them to send this to you or to complete this homework, I used to call it. And if they show up to the meeting, the initial consultation, without having this done, we're going to want to walk through this process with them at that first meeting. Don't get too far into your sales process without having these things identified. All right, so the survey we discussed adding, where you would be able to send a link out to people ahead of time and ask them, hey, you know, here's 5 questions that I would like to know more about your project. Number 1 is home style or project you're considering. Is there a specific motif? Is there a specific floor plan of ours that you found that you like, or one that maybe you found online or someplace else? Are there specific products that you would like to have that we know in the home that we should be discussing? How about financing? Is that completed? Are you paying cash? How's it going to be? And then give them an opportunity for any other questions. So Runa, would you make a note? I don't know if we have this on our project chart to discuss this initial consultation survey.
Okay.
So it'll be part of the send ahead or the pre-consultation. And then we're going to get to right before the initial consultation, we want to go back and we want to look at the tracking. So what is Ubix tracking from a prospect standpoint? Well, we're going to track, did they open our emails that we sent them? Did they download the PDF? Did they go and watch our video testimonials, or did they answer this survey? So Runa, I'm going to flip back over to you so we can look at the customer one-on-one and see where we find that information.
Okay, so I'm back to customer one-on-one. Can you see my screen?
Not yet. There it is.
There it is. Okay, so great. So we looked at the this customer one-on-one. So what I typically would do is that I would look at the overview here, and then I will quickly go down and look at basically engagement level, and then I go up to the click activity, that's basically their behavior online. So in this one, you can see when they were in, when they clicked. You can see the score points that were accumulated. You can see what they clicked on. So you have all the different, basically name, description of what they clicked on. You have the time that they spent in different places. And you can also jump into one of these. Let's just pick an arbitrary one. Opens up the direction for that particular click. In here looking at photos, and then you can navigate your way from here by clicking on next. So they spent 48 seconds in here. Click on the next one, and they spent an half on this one. So you can basically navigate your way, you know, through the trail that the customer had online.
Here's a couple of things for those of you that have had some of this training before. There are 3 hot buttons that we're looking for with every single prospect. Who knows the 3 particular hot buttons? When I'm going back and looking at this data, there's 3 specific things that I'm going to focus in on. Gosh, I see no hands going up. I see, and hopefully somebody's typing something in right now. Otherwise, I'm a failure as a teacher. Survey says. All right, I see nothing, so I'm gonna give them to you. So you want to make a note of this. Number 1 hot button that we find that people are looking for is design. So when they are looking at anything on the website or any emails associated with design, if you see a higher, number one, a higher number of design pages they're looking at, or number two, we're going to go back to that other screen, or number two, if you see time on the site. So if you see where it says time spent, here's the number I'm looking for. Anytime I get 1 minute or more, and if I get to a spot that's 2 minutes, that's probably the equivalent of about an hour on site. So when I see that somebody has spent 1 or 2 minutes or more on specific pages, I want to drill into those pages and look at that. So this particular person spent 2 minutes and 21 seconds looking at the Cheyenne. So I note to self, I make a note that, hey, this person might like that floor plan. So when I'm doing my email follow-up now, I know the interest is design, and what would be the desire? The desire would be maybe they want to see a Cheyenne floor plan. So I would use that in my email. You know, we happen to be building a Cheyenne in the neighborhood right now. Is that something you would like to see? If yes, just reply to this email and we'll set up a time to talk and I'll try to get you through it. So that's how you would use this information. So number one is design, first and foremost. That by far trumps everything else. Number two hot button that you might find would be location. And this is true more for home builders and remodelers. So if you see them looking at a lot of your different neighborhoods, they're looking again to find that perfect lot or place to build. And then number three is going to be pricing. So pricing for a home builder, they're going to be looking at your available homes because they're trying to figure out the different price points you build at. And for a remodeler, they'll be downloading the pricing guides that we have on there. So then you would use that as a desire to get more specific information on pricing for their project as a reason that they would want to talk to you on the phone. So that's how you take the interest from customer 101 here. And remember the formula, AIDAT. I get attention, I build interest, so the interest is design. I create desire. Would you like to stop by and see the Cheyenne floor plan? I ask them to take action. Reply to this email and let me know. Or call me here and let me know, and then I just simply thank them for their time. Very short, sweet, and to the point. I'm going to flip back, Runa.
Okay.
So all that information is tracked right in Customer 101. So Runa showed you what they were looking at for web visits. On that same screen, you will also find right below that, you'll find out all the emails that have been sent, what they've opened, and if they clicked on that email. So if it says click, that means they clicked on a link on that particular email. All right, so now we're moving into the actual face-to-face part of the initial consultation. So something you need to consider right now is how adults learn. And when you teach for NAHB, they make you take a class called Train the Trainer. And part of that is that you're looking at what is the differences between the way children learn and the way adults learn. And the thing that really hit me was that there are three different methods that adults use to learn. And unfortunately, we rely way too heavily on number one, or auditory. As you can see, only 10% of the population learns strictly by listening. So the really chilling thing about that is that either only 10% of your message is getting through, or you're really only truly connecting with 1 out of 10 people. Either way, it's just horrible to think that way. Visual and kinesthetic are incredibly important. Now here's where I see specifically home builders making a huge mistake when it relates to visual, is they rely way too heavily on a model home. They think, oh, the model home is so nice that people will be so wowed by the model home that they're going to buy from me. And of course, sometimes that does happen. But the problem is that happens to the minority of people. Because what happens if people walk into your model home and they don't like the colors, or they don't like the floor plan, or they don't like the cabinets, or they hate the carpet in the great room? Well, then your visual is actually working against you than for you. So finally is the kinesthetic. The kinesthetic learning is where we learn by doing. So a model home demonstration, letting people walk through the model home, is a form of kinesthetic learning. Letting them open up cabinet drawers, letting them look inside closets, letting them explore, that's kinesthetic learning. It can also be done through using a tablet. So a tablet allows me to use a visual images to reinforce my auditory message, but it also allows them to scroll a little bit so they have their own kinesthetic learning. So when I get to this event, it's very, very important that all of you have a tablet. I mean, I'm sorry, it's not even optional anymore. It's mandatory. Everybody and their brother is using tablets today. And so it's becoming something that's the norm versus the exception, not only for home building and remodeling, but for all other industries. Tablets are very popular. So when we get to the actual event, and we are going to walk through the 3 steps here, the first 3 steps would be to, complete our needs analysis, confirm the hot buttons, and push hot buttons as part of the presentation. We're going to be using a tablet to help us reinforce doing that. And so here's a couple of notes of things that you can do on a tablet. First of all, there's always an agenda for the initial consultation. The agenda, however, is never done the same way twice. It's very, very important you understand that. Never try to just do a boilerplate presentation because everybody has different hot buttons. So that's why it's important that we complete our needs analysis, confirm our hot buttons before we ever jump into the agenda. So potential hot buttons, again, are going to be design. Okay, that's usually what people are looking for. That's why they want to meet, because they want to see something up and close, whether they want to come to your showroom, whether they want to come to a model home or an inventory home, or maybe one of your customers' home. They want to see something, and that's from a design perspective. Pricing is very important too. People are curious. Well, how much home can I get for my money, or how much is this project going to cost? Number 3 is new versus used homes. Of course, for home builders, your biggest competition is not builder B down the street. The biggest competition is the used market, especially if you have a buyer that is already tied in with a realtor. That realtor most likely, not always, but most likely is going to be working against you. Because that realtor is thinking, number 1, I don't really understand new construction, so I feel like I'm losing control, so that scares me. Number 2, they know if they go out and sell that buyer something used, they're getting paid in 30 to 45 days. So they look at it as a quicker payday. So new construction to most realtors is a detriment, and they'll work against you. So it's very, very important you have that conversation of if they are only considering new homes or if they're also considering used homes. And if they are looking at used homes, we have a special document you can pull out just to do a comparison and make sure people understand the true price versus cost relationship of a used versus a new home. The construction process. Remember, your biggest fear of your buyers is the fear of the unknown. And people that have not built before, they've heard horror stories, and so the fear of the unknown of how that construction process works is very, very important. So you have to document that. Now, number 5 is something that you probably aren't doing unless you have been through this training before. Number 5 is when I get to my initial consultation, I am not going to jump and run and show people the model home. This is my first substantial meeting. I'm not going to show them home sites. I'm going to sit down with them first and foremost. I'm going to have a frank conversation with them, and I want them to answer one question. And that question is, would you consider using you or your builder as their builder of choice? And we're going to spend about 20 minutes doing this, and I'll go through that process. Then if they say yes, we would consider using you, then you're going to go look at either doing your model tour or project notes if you're remodeling. So let's look at a couple of these items right now. First of all, for a tablet, obviously the iPad's the most popular tablet out there. I have an Asus ePad. Samsung makes some good tablets. I look at it this way: either if you're an Apple guy, use Apple. If you're an Android guy, or Google guy, or gal, use Android. But you need to have a tablet, and they all more or less work the same. The app that seems to work pretty good for displaying like PDFs or PowerPoints, that sort of thing, is Kingsoft Office app. They do have a pro version, a paid. Otherwise, you can just download that as a free app. Again, I'm going from an Android standpoint, so for Apple there might be something different. So I'm going to have a PDF. I'm going to probably break this down into 4 different PDFs, and I have a sample here to show you here. But I want to have a PDF for a builder story. So that's your positioning statement, your unique selling proposition, your marketing message. I want to have a PDF maybe for how your design process works, a PDF for pricing, and then a PDF for the building process. And depending on the hot buttons I discover from my initial conversations, that will determine which ones I'm going to go through. I probably won't ever go through all 4 of them. I don't need to. I'll just go through the ones that are important to my prospect. The other thing that I recommend you have on there is if you do not have, if your tablet's not Wi-Fi enabled, if you're always relying on whether you've got to have a separate Wi-Fi unit or whatever for your hotspot for your phone, then I would recommend that you get some photo albums on there. If you do have Wi-Fi enabled, it's really simple. Just go to your website. But you should have photo albums. Now for remodeling, I would recommend by room or project. For new homes, I would recommend, again, by maybe plan name. You have a specific plan name. And then if you had a lot of them, you would break them down by room. So I would have the Cheyenne kitchen or the Cheyenne master bathroom, so on and so forth. But very important. Now, why is this important? Because when you're walking people through that model home and they say, oh, I hate dark cabinets. So instead of letting them leave there with saying, you know, these guys only do dark cabinets. I like the other builder because he did white cabinets. You are able to then take your tablet and say, you know what, let me just show you a couple of their kitchen options here. Here's one we did with white cabinets. What do you think of this? Ooh, I like that. Yeah, this is at another one of our homes that we built a little while ago. I could probably get you in to see that. Okay, great. So now I've got a reason for them to come back and meet with me again. But that's why you would use the photo albums. All right, so what we're going to start with then is confirming the needs analysis or hot buttons. So going back to, if there's any particular information that you were not able to get on this sheet here before meeting, you want to get this done right away. So again, look at it this way. When you go to the doctor does not make a diagnosis until he or she goes through all the questions in order to determine what is wrong with you. You're the same thing. You have to probe and get all this information on the table. And there's a simple formula you follow. You're going to want to write this down if you haven't already. It's A, B, C, D. A is where you want to identify problems, and you do this for your needs analysis. B is where you agitate those problems. So A, identify problems. B, agitate those problems. And remember this. Nobody is going to remodel or move unless the pain of staying the same overcomes the fear of change. It's very important you understand that. So never jump right into your designs, your floor plans, your home sites until you've done A and B. Identify the problems and agitate those problems. And by agitating the problems, I mean that you never let somebody just tell you that, oh, my house is too small, and don't dig deeper. Oh, so your house is too small. So what aren't you able to do right now at your home because it's too small? Well, you know what? I can never have Thanksgiving at my home. We always have to go to my sister's house, and I really want to host Thanksgiving. Oh, okay. Or the kids are fighting over space or whatever it is. So that's the agitation part of it. You want them to feel that emotion of if they do not make a change, that their life is not going to get any better as it relates to what happens at home. So next is C. C is your solution introduction. So I've identified the problems, I've agitated those problems, now I introduce the solution. The solution introduction, again, is what we just discussed as it relates to your initial consultation. So is a solution introduction, is it talking about design? Is it getting into how projects are priced? Is it the construction process? What is that solution introduction? That's where you, as a salesperson, need to use your skill set to make a determination the best place to start. And again, photo albums to identify preferences is great. Now, let me do this. I'm going to pull open this initial consultation checklist on this side. This is one for remodeling. I've got one for new homes too, but this more or less documents what that first 20 minutes should look like. From when they walk into your model home, completing your needs analysis, and what I've done is I've highlighted right here the builder story. This is probably the most important question that you ask somebody when they're sitting in front of you. Number one, have you hired a company to remodel your home before? Or have you built a home before? Yes or no? Very, very important. Never jump into any part of your solution until you understand this. Why, Rick? Why is that important? Well, number one is, if they have remodeled before, why aren't they using that same remodeler? What happened? Was it a bad experience, or are they already working with that remodeler and then just trying to use you to price them? Same thing for home building. Well, if they have built before, why aren't they using that same builder again? Now, if they have built before, have remodeled before, I go to what criteria did you use to choose them? I want to know, did somebody make a purchase decision based on a low price? And based on that, did they have a bad experience because of it? Okay, so on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, how would you rate your building experience? Was it good? Was it bad? Okay, so how important is that to you right now? So would you rather sacrifice a low price, sacrifice a good building experience to get a low price? In other words, how much is it willing for you to work with a crappy build? How much is it worth you to work with a crappy builder? So obviously none of you are into that. How would you rate your ownership experience? Warranty, craftsmanship, design. That sort of thing. Now, how about if they did not? How about they say, no, we've never built before? This is how you lead into that. Well, since we would be the first builder you'd be working with, what things would you like to know about us before you would consider hiring us? Since we would be the first builder you'd be working with, what things would you like to know about our builder before you would consider hiring us? And then let them tell you. This is where the hot buttons will come out again. Well, I was talking to my neighbor who built the home before, and he said, make sure your builder has this. Or I read an article in the paper about a builder that did this. How do you guys handle that? I mean, so those hidden fears are going to come out, and you're going to be able to address those moving forward. So maybe it's again, those hidden fears are, I don't think I can get the home. I want to make sure I get the design right the first time. I'm worried about paying too much. I'm worried about warranty. I'm worried about you picking up and leaving in the middle of it. But all these things would be part then of how you move forward in your presentation. So this is a checklist for you that you can print out. You can put notes on this. I put this right on the clipboard. I will use it for me, print it, so it sort of guides me of what I want to talk about. The corresponding visual that would go on your tablet looks something like this. This is a client of mine. This is they're a remodeler, so this is what they use for kitchens. So they've got their marketing message here. We've got an overview of our time together. This is actually all four of them put into one. And so what they're discussing here is, consider this an interview. Here's a little bit about us. We're going to define remodeling, design, pricing, construction. Same thing here. And then, hey, you know what? If you like us and you're a good fit for us, our next step is our scope range or options meeting. And then what they can do is they can jump to any part of this presentation that they need to in order to reinforce their auditory message. That's what you're using the tablet for. Do they ever go through this slide by slide? No. They will jump around. So that's why I would suggest that you take this particular PDF, make 4 different PDFs, and just go into the ones that are important to your prospect. All right, let me go back here. Construction process, confirmation for consideration. Construction process, you should all have what's called a steps to building or steps to remodeling. And what this is simply what is the process to go from my initial meeting today to actually where I'm owning your new home or my new kitchen. So we get down here to closing to move in. So what are the things that need to happen? I have 10 steps here. That's a lot. It's better to have less than that, but 10 is fine. So what are we doing at step 1, initial consultation? Next thing we do is design. Next thing we do is we do some pricing. We revise that. We do the purchase agreement. We move into design selections, start framing, rough end, get all the way to closing. So what I'm doing here is I'm removing the fear of the unknown. I've never built before or I had a bad experience building. I want to show people that, hey, this is our process and this is how it works. We're here in step number 1. Guess what? If you like us, we like you, we're going to move to step 2. And we'll go through step 2, we get to step 3. So there's a little closing technique out there called the next step close, which was my favorite close. And so I would always, when I was going through the process with my prospects, I would always just keep referring to the sheet. Well, here we are now. We're on the investment worksheet presentation. So what we're going to do is I'm going to review this with you. We're going to make some revisions, and then we're going to authorize the paperwork for the purchase agreement. Now, since you have a home to sell, this will be contingent upon you selling that home. Or since you've already sold your home, You know, this would be non-contingent. We'll get this to the financing, and then what we're going to do is we're going to get you into finish up our design. So that's what it's used for. Not only as a sales tool for you, but also as a confidence builder for them. All right. So for first 20 minutes of that initial consultation, would you consider hiring NIH Homes? Would you consider hiring Pratt Homes? Whatever it is. They say, yeah, I would. Great. Okay, let's do an educational walkthrough. And that's where then I would begin taking them through the model home. Now, one thing you got to be careful of here that I would suggest that you move away from is get away from included features. Get away from included features. Focus more on design build. In other words, the model home is a living showcase. It's a living showcase of opportunities or of different things, the way you could build your home. What I'm going to do is walk you through and show you what we have. I'm going to get feedback from you. You tell me what you like or don't like. But when somebody asks you and say, well, is that included? I mean, the simple answer is that whatever you put on the floor, whether it be carpet, vinyl, or hardwood floors or tile, either something costs less or something costs more. So it's all included based on what your needs are, you know, from a design perspective. So guess what? If hardwood's important to you, yes, it's included. We're gonna include hardwood. And I just go back then to my needs, wants, and wishes. I say, well, it's hardwood, and you know, is that a need? Is it a want or a wish? Well, it's a need. Okay, great. Guess what? Hardwood is going in my base price. But that's not an included feature, Rick. You never have a same set of included features twice because every prospect is different. What's important to one is not important to the other. And if you do not listen to them and you do not take into consideration what they consider a need, and you start itemizing that on your pricing, they're going to look at you and say, what builder would build a $300,000 home without hardwood floors in the kitchen? I can't work with a builder like this. What they think is, you don't get me. So remember, you go back to every single item that you go through on that model home, nothing's included. It's a design build process. How do you want to live in the home? How do you want the home to perform? I will take notes on that. I will identify needs, wants, and wish for any of these. And when I come back to present preliminary pricing, anything on that list that's a need is going to be in my lump sum pricing. And we'll talk more about that at a future date. We'll get into some specific training with that. Obviously, for remodeling, I'm going to take measurements, and then I always am closing for my next step. So here, of course, my next step is going to be that home site review for a home building or a scope and range meeting for remodeling. Now, for remodeling, I like to get money right now. I'll get my $250 right now before I bring them into that scope and range meeting. Home site review, you're going to get some money put down on that once they reserve the home site. Important thing is never get too specific on pricing before you have a deposit, period. Always a range prior to this. How can you give a firm number on anything if you have not taken the time to go through plans, to go through specifications, to go through scope of work, and determine home site configuration? If you do that, you're making assumptions. If you're making assumptions, 99.9% of the time they're going to be wrong. Never make assumptions here. So always stick with a range and always have a reason for them to keep moving forward to get the information that they want. So after my initial consultation, let's say everything went great. I took my notes. I've got my needs, wants, and wishes. We talk budget ranges. We're gonna set and meet for home site reservation. What do I want to do? Well, I want to, number one, I want to give client references. And don't give 3 or 4 or 5. Give everybody you've built for in the last 3 years. Everybody. Take the crazies out of there. So the crazies come out, but everyone else you've built for in the last 3 years. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Prospect, we are so confident in, with our customer service and our program, is that you go ahead and call any one of these people you want. You ask them about the experience. You're going to find that they're going to give you a pretty consistent answer. That's a confidence builder right there. Number 2, give them whatever agreement you want to get authorized ahead of time. So if the next step is the home site reservation, you give that to them. If it's the scope and range meeting or a plan deposit, you give that to them ahead of time. Always give it ahead of time. And then the final thing I want to make sure they walk away with is the steps to building, like I showed you before. Hey, here's where we are right now, this is what we're doing next, and this is where we get to the point where we start construction. always want to focus on production part of it, get through the contractual part of it, because contracts are scary, production's exciting. So in order to get to production, we have to authorize the paperwork. We have to authorize the construction agreement. We are going to come back next time, and we are going to spend some more time on going through this initial consultation and listening for these hot buttons, and then being able to modify on the fly your presentation based on those hot buttons. So we'll be working with you on that. And Runa, I think that's it for me today. Anything else that you want to add to stuff we've gone through?
No, this is excellent. Nothing else.
Wonderful.
So will you email a link for this?
Yes, I'll send out a link for this meeting, for the recording of this meeting to everyone, so you have it. It'll go in the resource library where all of the recorded calls are and training sessions. And is there any? Please ask questions right now. Okay, so I see somebody raise their hand. So ask questions right now here before we're done. Gordon, I'm going to unmute you. Hi, Gordon. Oh, you may not have audio. Gordon, you don't have audio. Okay, I got your question here. Hold on. Yep, I will do that, Gordon. I will send that out. Okay, any other questions from everyone before we finish up here? I don't see any. I'll send out the follow-up link right now. We'll be back on the 28th, it looks like, of February for our second training session. We're going to get more into that initial consultation, and working through that and getting into where you're going to present pricing will be done in March here. So in the meantime, if you have any other topics you want to discuss, please let your owner or your sales manager know, because we'll be meeting with them next week. And thank you. Oh, hold on, Eric, you had a question. Let me see. Oh, yep, thanks, Eric. Appreciate it. I think I got to everybody. Okay, that's it, guys. Have a good afternoon. Happy Valentine's Day once again. Bye-bye.